So in this film, our heroes are the people who see it, as you say, see it coming. And Christian Bale, he obviously, do you think he had a choice of all the parts and he thought, I want to play the one who's a bit special?
Maybe, because it's not particularly the Christian Bale that we see. I think, since, he was doing Batman at the time, around this time, wasn't he? He's an actor. So he most likely thought this is something different. He has
He wouldn't want the
eye.
Ryan Gosling part, would he?
Probably not. But Ryan Gosling was very suited.
Well, I think he's my favorite. He's my favorite performance.
Oh, is he? Oh, okay. That's good. Well, he's good. He is good. Steve Carell, I think, is my favorite in it because of his sincerity, and by that I mean he's so committed. When he's devastated, you really feel like he's devastated.
Hello and welcome to this bonus episode of the Aspects of History podcast, The Film Club. My name is Oliver Webb-Carter and I'm the editor and your host. In our third and fourth podcasts of The Film Club, we're commemorating the 2008 financial crash with a double bill, starting today with The Big Short, directed by Adam McKay and starring Christian Bale, Brad Pitt, Steve Carell and Ryan Gosling. And next week will be Margin Call, starring Paul Bettany, Jeremy Irons, Stanley Tucci, Demi Moore and Kevin Spacey. This year marks the 15th anniversary of the crash, and more specifically when the first big bank went, with the fall of Bear Stearns. The Big Short is about how a group of bankers and hedge funders bet against the system, and by system I mean the big banks and the US economy, and came out on top. Now, it's not important that you understand the intricacies of the economic theory behind it. All you need to remember is that it's about failing mortgages, which many economies assumed would be bulletproof and which turned out to have more holes than a Swiss cheese. Now, I've picked this double bill because I'm convinced that many of the problems we've seen since 2008 derive from it, from the lack of trust in politicians who authorised bailouts of banks, the banks themselves which quickly recovered and resumed paying their executives obscene fees, the impact on the global economy which has seen sluggish wage growth, and finally the democratic price, as quite revolutionary election results have been seen in America, Britain, France and in many other countries. Anyway, that's the heavy stuff out of the way. Next Tuesday is Margin Call, but today it's The Big Short, and I'll hand you over to me, talking with acclaimed director Tim Hewitt. Tim Hewitt, welcome back to the Aspects of History Film Club.
Thanks for having me back again.
And we are going into the financial crash of 2008, which may be considered to be rather a boring subject. But listeners, we are going to try and make sure it is not boring. It is a hugely significant event post 9/11. It's probably the most significant event post 9/11 up until the invasion of Ukraine, maybe last year. And it's probably responsible for all sorts of ramifications such as Brexit, Trump. One can make an argument.
It's not boring when it comes to, because we're talking about films. So, films aren't boring.
No, and these films
are far from boring.
And they star fantastic actors. We're going to start with, we're doing two films as this 2008 celebration of 2008 financial disaster. Big Short and Margin Call. The Big Short we're going to kick off with first. So that's directed by Adam McKay. It was in 2015. It stars a few unknowns, but also the big guns are Steve Carell, Christian Bale, Brad Pitt, and of course Ryan Gosling. And I was just thinking, Adam McKay, the director, he's used to doing sort of silly comedies, really, isn't he?
Well, up until recently, because I think pretty much since The Big Short, he's been handling quite serious subject matters and doing very well at it. His latest being Don't Look Up, I believe, with Leonardo DiCaprio, which is, kind of in keeping. His humor, I think, is very much present in most of the stuff he does, even this.
Anchorman? Did you do Anchorman?
He did do Anchorman, yeah.
Well, there is plenty of humor in this, but in the
absolutely,
and in the wake of the financial crash. So this is made 7 years after. We were talking about this, I think, before, but it's a challenge to make this subject interesting. What they do is they're very clever about explaining everything.
Yes, they do it pretty blatantly. I mean, they basically just look at the camera and go, okay, you don't really understand what's going on, do you? Okay, well, here's a celebrity to explain it to you. I think the first one is Margot Robbie in the bath, just basically trying to explain in layman's terms what's going on. But to be honest, I mean, even I, having watched it a second time, it's not my field. So, even when Margot Robbie's trying to explain it in the simplest terms, a lot of the time I was kind of like, hang on, I think I might have to rewind that again. What was she saying? Because they're all sorts of like ins and outs, little tiny parentheses, what this type of bond, but that type of, and I was kind of like, okay, but I was enjoying the ride. I mean, I think they do make it interesting because of the way it's paced and the performances. I mean, such a good ensemble performance from everyone.
Which is your favorite?
Steve Carell, I think, particularly is excellent because he's kind of like the moral center of the film,
which is a challenge, I think, even because he's still a banker, even though he is the moral center. It's a bit of a challenge. I mean, it's interesting, but you can go into as much detail as you like if you want in the financial crash. But ultimately, it's just the big banks bet way too much advanced financial instruments on mortgages, which then failed.
Yes, yeah, which is the whole thing. I mean, Christian Bale plays the guy who foresaw it all coming
by looking at spreadsheets showing mortgage payments were defaulting.
What was one of the characters in it says, "You read them? Nobody reads them. Not even the lawyer. The only people who read them are lawyers." And he's like, "Yeah, well, even the lawyers probably don't understand what's actually in them."
That's true, because there was this assumption it's a mortgage. They say that at the beginning of the film that the man who invented I think it was the financial instrument based off mortgages, betting on this, is who doesn't pay their mortgage.
Yeah, exactly. It's so strange to think that it was something that was, because I didn't know about it really at all, what was going on. And then when I started to read up on it and watch the films, it's like, well,
so in America, and certainly in this country as well, I think it was in America, the Clinton administration was very keen to ensure as many people as possible could own their own home, which meant firms were encouraged, regulations stripped back to encourage lending to people who couldn't afford their mortgage. And
that scene with the two guys who really basically just, and they say they're not confessing, they're bragging. The two guys are basically just like, yeah, we just lend it to anyone. They don't know they can't afford it. They don't even make the points. And we just, and they're like, we just fool anyone into borrowing all this money. And it was actually quite disturbing, in fact, to think that's what happened.
And I think the best way of showing how disturbing it all was, if you skip a bit towards Las Vegas scene, where you get a couple of, a celebrity and a Nobel Prize winner. The celebrity, because I'm of a certain age, I haven't heard of, but I'm sure is massively famous. A Nobel Prize winning economist explains why it became such a massive financial event, because everyone was betting on the bets that were betting on mortgages never failing. So you almost had an infinite number of bets being made by financial firms and then hedge funds and all a domino effect and a hugely layered, complicated area caused it to be sort of trillions and trillions of dollars of losses.
Yeah.
So then, so in this film, our heroes are the people who see it, as you say, see it coming. And Christian Bale, he obviously, do you think he had a choice of all the parts and he thought, I want to play the one who's a bit special?
Maybe, because it's, it's not particularly the Christian Bale that we see. I think, since, he was doing Batman at the time, around this time, wasn't he? He's an actor. So he most likely thought this is something different. He has
he wouldn't want the
eye.
Ryan Gosling part, would he?
Probably not. But Ryan Gosling was very suited.
Well, I think he's my favorite. He's my favorite performance.
Oh, is he? Oh, okay. That's good. Well, he's good. He is good. Steve Carell, I think, is my favorite in it because his sincerity, and by that I mean he's so committed. When he's devastated, you really feel like he's devastated, and his slight arrogance, when he comes into the therapy session and he starts kind of going off on one, interrupting everyone, and then and then his phone rings. I got to take this, but she keeps
that's
saying,
great.
"I got to take."
And Marisa,
then,
I want to shout out Marisa Tomei because she's in it for about a minute, and she's so good. Why didn't they? Must have. Do you think they cut her scenes or something?
I don't know. I mean, you could ask the same thing about Melissa Leo because she's in it as well. In an amazing scene. She's amazing. She's in it for I mean, blink of an eye. But I don't know. You'd have to ask Adam McKay. The ensemble is just brilliant, and you see Karen Gillan as a little cameo in it as well.
Remind me who that is.
Who we know from Avengers, the Avengers films. She plays.
Haven't seen those.
Gamora's sister. Okay. Don't worry, then let's gloss over that. She's a Scottish actress. I think she started in Doctor Who and then has become.
Who's she in it?
And she plays the woman by the swimming pool.
She works for the regulator. SEC, I think.
Plays an American, but she's actually Scottish. Yeah, but it's. I think it was probably before she was. Oh, Brad Pitt's actually really good in it. He's very, he's very straightforward. Isn't the most showy roles, but he produced it as well because it's produced by Plan B, which is his production company.
Yes, they've made very good films. One of my favorite is Killing Them Softly.
Really good film. Regardless of the subject matter, there is a certain amount of suspense and a thrill to it. I would say not so much as the next film we're going to talk about, Margin Call, because I think that was constructed in a much more of a suspense atmosphere and pace. But The Big Short was, and Rafe Spall has a nice little part in it as well. He's very good.
We haven't actually mentioned it's based on the Michael Lewis book, and because I know he wanted to write about the financial crash, and he himself had been a bond trader back in the 80s and quit because he said he wasn't any good at it. I doubt that. He probably was quite good at it. He obviously has done Moneyball, and he's very good at explaining complex puzzles simply. What I was really interested, these individuals, played by the big actors, are all people who are kind of, they're not comfortable working within the system they're in. And there weren't many people who did see it coming. Many investment banks went in for these bad bets. They were invented. I've just been reading a very good book about the financial crash, and they were invented. It's called Fool's Gold, written by Gillian Tett, Financial Times editor. It's an excellent book, and it explains the birth of the subprime. What do they call the financial instrument that all the banks went in for that caused? And they were invented in the mid 90s at JP Morgan, and JP Morgan ironically came out of the crash stronger than any other bank. They didn't really get their fingers burnt like other firms, most famously Lehman Brothers did. And these four individuals are all betting against the big boys, even though two of them are based within the big firms. I think Ryan Gosling's character is within Deutsche Bank and Steve Carell's is within Goldman Sachs. So performance-wise, like I thought Ryan Gosling was brilliant, but I think Steve Carell, you're a fan of in this. Then.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan Gosling kind of is well, he looks the part very much. I mean,
it's very realistic.
Yeah, I do like his little asides to camera just out of the blue when Steve Carell interrupts the lecture that actually he asks a question in, and then he has to take a phone call again. And Ryan Gosling just leans back and looks at the camera and goes, he actually did that. Yeah, he just asked a question and then took a phone call and left.
And he treats his assistant terribly, which is very funny.
Yes. He's like, shut up.
Tell me the difference between illegal and stupid, and I'll have my brother-in-law arrested.
Yeah, really good lines. Adam McKay's writing actually is very, very good, which I think he writes all his stuff. I do think Ryan Gosling is excellent. I think Christian Bale he's very good because his commitment to character is, he's got a glass eye. That probably attracted him. He probably wanted to play the drums in a scene to heavy metal and walk around barefoot and just wear a very, very simple costume, which is a t-shirt and shorts, I think. And I just think it is a character piece. There isn't really...
could the film have worked if they were all your average banker? It wouldn't have worked at all, would it?
Probably not. I mean, it probably would have been good. The acting would have been good, but I'm not sure they would have got the I mean, for something like that, they wouldn't have got the funding for a film of this. I mean, it's quite a verbose film. You know, there is not an ounce of action in it. It's all talk and numbers and business. And so I think, you know, the fact you've got Ryan Gosling, Brad Pitt, Steve Carell, Christian Bale is going to sell film, which it did very well.
Yeah. And another film that came out around, well, a little bit earlier, actually, which was based on an excellent book, which I recommend, written by Too Big to Fail is the film, starring William Hurt, the late, great William Hurt, sadly died recently. And that's a realistic account, as in it's almost a sort of docudrama. It's a drama, but it's based on all the key figures who were trying to fix the crash once Lehman Brothers went tits up. So William Hurt plays Hank Paulson, the US Treasury Secretary. And it stars Billy Crudup as well as a number of other. You've got Billy Crudup plays Tim Geithner, the head of the New York Fed. You've got Ben Bernanke played by Paul Giamatti. So it's not so good. It's a TV movie, I think. The book is excellent. Really recommend that. Andrew Ross Sorkin is the author. But the film Too Big to Fail, it's way too sympathetic to William Hurt's character, Hank Paulson, who worked at Goldman Sachs in the build-up to the crash, and was in part responsible for the mess, as was Ben Bernanke, and more importantly, Ben Bernanke's predecessor, the head of the US Federal Reserve, Alan Greenspan, under whose stewardship all these subprime mortgages and all these CDCs and all these terrible bets built up. Good. This film is a much angrier film, and therefore better for it, because it had such far-reaching effects. I mean, I've talked about the political repercussions, but, you know, people lost their homes and jobs.
I mean, it's interesting you say it's an angry film. I mean, it is an angry film, but I think there is a lot of comedy in it. It's not the sort of film that you can make completely and utterly morose. Otherwise, people would just, I think, switch off after a while, because you need a bit of humor in there.
So, best performance, we going with Steve Carell?
I think Steve Carell is
probably a harder part.
Actually, he's really good. You know, when he gets up, when he's like, when he can't believe what he's hearing, you genuinely believe he's devastated. Ryan Gosling is a bit lighter. You know, he's a little bit more hoarse.
Yeah, he's the comic relief, isn't he? Okay, so he's our best performance. Now, what about most unlikely scene?
Well, they give it to you in the film, in a way. There is one scene where they're like, it didn't happen this way, where they just find everything blatantly in front of them on the table in the waiting room of which bank? I can't remember which bank it was.
It was JP Morgan. I was going to nominate that as well, actually. It's quite funny
because it's the film sets up from the very beginning what the joke is, what their way of getting out of factually improbable, or in fact just blatant lie, a blatant untrue story, is to say to camera that didn't happen like that. You know, I'm surprised they didn't actually say things like, okay, it didn't happen like that because for this film it just wouldn't work and we need to get the film moving.
Yeah, that's basically what they said.
They basically just do that.
Yeah, and it's true, because there's no way you'd leave marketing materials like that just lying around in a busy office building. Yeah, so I will go with that. That's with the two young lads who create this hedge fund. I think they clearly come from some kind of money in the first place, because they say, "Oh, we started out with 100 grand and have ended up with 50 million or something," which is amazing. But they started out with 100 grand renting out their dad's boat or something. But they had a boat.
Well, actually, you need You need 1 point something billion. And I was sitting there watching,
and they would have known that before they went there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I was sitting there watching the film going, seriously, what's upsetting about this? They've turned 100 grand into 30 million. Why the sad faces?
I know, surely they've enough now.
Well, exactly. But I guess nothing's enough in that world. I would say that scene, simply because they say it.
Yes, yes, fair enough. Sold. I think that, but I love you mentioned it before with Margot Robbie, and then you get Anthony Bourdain. Oh, Anthony Bourdain, who died a few years ago now, makes an appearance.
Oh, and we mustn't forget Tracy Letts. Tracy Letts is he's an older actor. He's the one who Christian Bale is basically on the phone to all the time. Is one of the investors, and he's like, "I want my money back." who's also a playwright. He wrote August, Osage County, and he wrote Killer Joe. The film was made by William Friedkin with
Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah, and I think he's primarily playwright, but he's also he's a regular in Homeland, and he pops up everywhere basically. Always a great actor, highly convincing.
Yeah, always plays sort of patrician,
slightly disagreeable,
menacing.
He's the one that comes in and says, "You're all ridiculous," and everyone's like, "No, but this." He did that in Homeland, actually, I think, as well. Favorite performance is Ryan Gosling. Best performance is Steve Carell.
And most unlikely scene is right. Now, and then our final category is legacy. I think this, as you said, it did really well, didn't it?
I think so. If you were to ask not anyone who is even interested in the finance or history or just films, what film? Tell me about a film that is based around the 2008 crash.
You're going to say The Big Short, aren't you?
I would say that people go, The Big Short.
Another good one, I don't know if you've seen it, is called 99 Homes.
I have seen that with Andrew Garfield and Michael Shannon. Yeah.
And that's at the other end of the crash. This is the people losing their homes.
Yeah, which is kind of like, I suppose you could say it's a nice companion piece to it. That was a really good film, actually. I thought and Andrew Garfield was very good in it.
Well, in the Big Short, on a budget of 50 million, it made, which presumably most of it went to the actors. The budget.
Well, I'm assuming so, because most film budgets. I mean,
do most film budgets?
Well, yeah. I mean, the example is, like, for example, Pulp Fiction the budget was 8 million. 5 million was actors' salaries.
Really?
So if you think about it, actually only cost $3 million to make Pulp Fiction. But the annoying thing about raising money is that it's, well, I suppose the audience goes to see, that's the thing. They go to see the actors. They don't go to see, the way the makeup's been put on the actors' cheeks.
Or the cinematography.
No offense to the makeup artists. They are amazing. Well, I mean, some people cinematography students will go to see Blade Runner 2049 because of the cinematography, most likely. But most people will go because of Ryan Gosling. So, well earned, chaps.
Well, it made 133 million.
I think you'll find that Margin Call was probably a lower budget, even though it had some very good names in it. But the thing is that you also look at these two, like Big Short is in a lot of locations. I mean, it jumps about a lot, whereas Margin Call is very much more contained. I suppose some people may say, when you ask them about the 2008 crash and films, they may say Margin Call may come up. But I think The Big Short had a little bit more of an impact because it dealt with a slightly more breadth and the time over time what happened, whereas Margin Call is very self-contained. I mean, I think this takes place over one night, really, doesn't it?
It does. And the sad thing actually about The Big Short is that I know that our heroes, and we really enjoy the film, and they beat the system and they make a huge amount of money. That's great for them. But ultimately, the losers in this was the global economy that went.
Yeah. I mean, watching it, it does bring back to mind, the fact that it started in the States, but then, when they start going, and Greece and Spain's been hit and you're like, wow, this is crazy.
Yeah, I'll probably talk a little bit more about my experience of working in the financial crash for an investment bank in the next one, more based around an investment bank during the financial crash.
Yeah, of course.
But it was weird working in a bank during the time when, I remember in March 2008 when Bear Stearns went, and everyone thought, oh, okay, something's, because Bear Stearns was a big firm. Yeah, so these guys do beat the system and they make all their money. But do you think then ultimately, because it's about bankers making money, it dilutes the fact that it would be a legacy?
Well, I mean, we've got to differentiate between it's a film and, of course, not a documentary. It's blatantly a film. It's quite obviously not a documentary in its style. I mean, what's interesting is just to actually quickly talk about the filmmaking aspect of it. I found it really interesting that in quite a lot of scenes, and I'm not sure if it was deliberate or whether the director said, when the camera moves and the actors move, we tend to focus. You have to focus on a specific place when there's movement, so that the camera knows exactly what it's focusing on. But quite often in The Big Short, people just go out of focus, and it feels very sort of free and loose, and it's kind of like almost like the directors, we're sort of trying to capture the action, and if we don't, it doesn't really matter because the performances are strong, and I guess it's kind of like almost like fly on the wall. But I just thought it was an interesting style that they went for, because it's quite a polished, clean looking film. It's sparkly, and Ryan Gosling's costumes are always lush, and his hair is amazing. I think in terms of filmmaking, and Adam McKay as a writer director, it stood up.
Yeah, I think we should introduce the boys' point system on Legacy out of 5. So what, like 3 out of 5?
3, 4. I would say. I mean, what would be interesting is to actually ask bankers. So, what financial crash film, or just?
I'd be surprised if they picked The Big Short.
You would be.
Yeah, because it basically shows bankers to be stupid, and because the majority of them go with the orthodoxy of,
It'd be nice to hear from some honest bankers who are like, no, that's absolutely right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the next film I think they would say is realistic, but I'm not sure they would. But that's not to say it's not realistic. That's just to say that bankers don't like to be shown to be stupid.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, well then 3.5 out of 5.
Okay, and we did Lincoln. Our Legacy rating was like 1 or something out of 5.
Oh, was it? Was it part?
Well, we didn't think it had a legacy.
No, we didn't think it was, which is a shame. Because the more I was thinking about that afterwards, I was like, well, actually, it's not. It's really good. It's a good film. Argo's 4.
4 out of 5.
4.5.
Right. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, Tim, that's it. We've done our best performance. That was Steve Carell, Most Unlikely Scene, JP Morgan Marketing Materials, exciting subject, and a Legacy, decent.
Yeah,
Legacy.
Decent film.
Great stuff. Legacy. Well, that's The Big Short, directed by Adam McKay, and it's very good. Yeah,
really very good.
Thanks, Tim.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks so much for listening. If you haven't seen the film, definitely watch it. If you have, watch it again. It's available on Amazon Prime. Next week, it's Margin Call, also on Amazon Prime. Until then, thank you and good night.